Okay, we'll have to switch between these slides, but this is something which we need to look at rather than just looking at functional and non-functional. This is an update based on the IIBA certification. Okay, so BABOK is the guide which is the reference point for IIBA. Okay, so BABOK guide defines the requirements or classifies the requirements into 4 parts. Okay, they start by saying there is a set of requirements which are business requirements. So it's basically read it as C requirements, or rather prior to C requirements, where customer defines the goals and objectives and the outcomes as to what they are looking for from the system and why a change has been initiated. So change is the keyword which is mentioned in BABOK 1,000 times. So when you are appearing for the certification exam, change is going to have many questions related to that. So every software project or every business analysis effort is related to a change. Why a software is being developed? Because there is a change which is required. Okay. So the reason for the change, the objective and the outcomes have to be defined to have that change done. That is something which is known as business requirements. So it can be related to an entire enterprise, a business area, or a specific project initiative. The business requirements will become a little more specific, a little more detailed once we identify who are the stakeholders for this particular specific project initiative or for that particular project. Once you have identified the stakeholders, then you are likely to have the C requirements from the stakeholders. So you talk to the stakeholders, understand the specific requirements from the stakeholders. Then you come at solution requirements. So BABOK tells that the requirements which we refer to as D requirements are actually solution requirements. That means these are the requirements which will further be classified as functional and non-functional. And that is something which will be used by the developers and the technology team to develop the solution. That's why they are called as solution requirements. This is a classification which is kind of little more objectively defined. So the solution requirements will have these 2 types of requirements called functional requirements and non-functional requirements, which we are going to see in details as to what are these requirements. And then one more set of requirements, which is transition requirements. So as we are talking about change, we need to consider transition as more kind of a requirements relating to the change which is likely to happen because of this solution. So what are the requirements for this transition to happen? This we have discussed, saying training could be one of them. So to be able to implement it correctly, training, some kind of a training has to happen. Some kind of migration of data which is required. So there is a pre-existing system or they're using something where they have accumulated data for over the years. The new system has to have that data to be able to generate comparative reports or reports of the previous year. Unless that data is migrated to the new system, this system is not used. So this is the classification of requirements as per BABOK. Now, just to further enhance the understanding of where is business analysis skills come into picture, where is business analyst involved during the requirements process. Okay, so we have a pyramid which is called requirements development pyramid, where business requirements are at the top of the pyramid. That is from where the whole thing starts. Then it gets further expanded and detailed as stakeholder requirements. Next step is to identify the solution and the transition requirements. That is further widened, more details come into picture. Then the analysis and modeling starts. So you'll have process model, you'll have data model, and finally you will end up the requirements development phase with acceptance test cases. Acceptance test cases are related to acceptance of the software. So that has to be defined alongside the requirements itself as to why and how the customer is going to accept the software. What are the different test cases which the customer will be using to accept the software. Now we'll go back to our previous one.